Good evening. I'm Andrew Smith, and this is All Over, your comprehensive look at the biggest global events shaping our world this week. Tonight, we begin with the escalating conflict between the United States and Iran, a war that is now entering a critical phase and sending shockwaves across the entire Middle East and global economy. The United States has significantly increased its military presence in the region. This week, Washington deployed approximately 2,500 additional Marines along with the amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli to the Middle East as tensions intensified and the conflict approached its second week. These forces are trained for embassy security, evacuations, and amphibious combat operations. Meanwhile, American and Israeli forces have continued coordinated strikes on Iranian military infrastructure. According to U.S. officials, thousands of targets have already been hit since the beginning of the campaign, including missile facilities, military bases, and strategic infrastructure. Iran has retaliated with waves of missile and drone attacks against American and allied positions across the region, including strikes targeting Gulf infrastructure and shipping routes. These exchanges have turned the conflict into a regional crisis involving multiple countries. One of the most dangerous developments this week involves the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical shipping lanes for oil. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow waterway, and disruptions there have already pushed global energy markets into turmoil. Oil prices surged above $100 per barrel, raising fears of inflation and economic instability worldwide. The conflict has also spread beyond Iran itself. Iranian missile strikes have targeted locations in Bahrain and Kuwait where American military forces are stationed, while clashes and protests have erupted in Iraq as supporters of Iran attempt to challenge the U.S. presence in the region. On the battlefield, the United States claims that Iranian missile and drone capabilities have been significantly weakened. Some U.S. officials say Iran's missile activity has dropped dramatically following strikes on weapons factories and launch sites, though fighting continues and no official end to the operation has been announced. At the same time, controversy has emerged over civilian casualties. The Pentagon has launched a high-level investigation into a February airstrike that reportedly hit a school in Iran and killed dozens of children, an incident that could increase international scrutiny of the war effort. Beyond the battlefield, the war is also triggering humanitarian and economic crises across the region. In Lebanon, escalating strikes linked to the conflict have killed hundreds of people and displaced hundreds of thousands more. Meanwhile, shipping disruptions and attacks on energy infrastructure are threatening global supply chains and international trade. But the Iran war is not the only major story this week. Across Europe, political tensions remain high as protests and demonstrations continue in several countries over economic reforms and rising living costs. Governments across the continent are facing mounting pressure as inflation and energy prices strain household budgets. Meanwhile, global financial markets have reacted nervously to the Middle East crisis. Energy prices, fertilizer costs, and transportation disruptions are beginning to ripple through the global economy, with analysts warning that a prolonged conflict could trigger a new wave of inflation worldwide. In Asia, governments are watching the situation closely as rising oil prices threaten economic stability for major importers like China, India, and Japan. And across the Muslim world, large demonstrations have taken place condemning the war, with protests reported in several cities as tensions between global powers and regional actors intensify. As the week comes to a close, the big question remains whether this conflict will expand further or move toward negotiations. For now, military operations continue, diplomacy remains uncertain, and the world is watching closely. That's your global update for this week. I'm Andrew Smith, and this has been All Over. Stay informed, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next report.